Ever leave a really aligned conversation and a week later realize nothing actually moved? This video is about fixing that. By the end, you'll know the three drivers that make execution take hold, so what gets discussed in those conversations becomes real progress. So let's start with the first driver, ownership. If everyone's responsible, no one is. Every action needs one owner, one outcome, and one next step. And ideally, that action is created by the person doing the actual work. Even in small teams where everyone's wearing multiple hats, you still need clarity on who's doing what, for what, and by when. That's how execution actually takes hold. And I've lived this running Rooted for Success. It was just me doing everything, too many priorities, too little progress. So I started breaking myself into departments. So one Andrea runs sales and marketing, one runs operations, one runs client work. Each one got one clear goal, and that was the thing that moves the needle the furthest. When everything lived on one giant to-do list, nothing really moved. And when I treated my business like a system with clear owners and outcomes, everything changed. Ownership isn't about adding more resources. It's about creating clarity around what actually moves you forward. So before we go further, I just want to say something that you might not love to hear. I don't think leaders love to hear. But execution doesn't fail because people aren't trying hard enough or because there's not enough time. Time isn't always the problem. Effort isn't the problem. The system is the problem. We overload people with priorities. We ask for behavior change while the day-to-day is screaming for their attention. We rely on results instead of the actions that create them. We delegate execution instead of leading it. And then we're surprised when nothing moves. When the system is unclear, even the highest performers stall. When the system is crystal clear, super clean, follow through becomes the default. And that's what lead to action is about, creating a system that makes movement possible. Look, we've all been in that situation, right? 5 people, 15 people, I don't care, sitting around a table, spending 3 hours or 3 days of time thinking and talking, $80,000 or $8,000 or even $40,000 a time. And a week, a month, or a quarter later, nothing's different. Everybody walked out aligned, but alignment without action is just a well-organized conversation. Execution gets swallowed up by fires, messages, and the noise of the day-to-day. So that's what we're going to fix. The second driver is leverage. Teams fail because their effort isn't aimed where it counts. Leverage isn't about doing more, it's about identifying the few actions that produce the greatest impact. This is where most teams fall apart. They work hard, but on the wrong things. They move fast, but not in the direction that matters. They create activity, but not progress. So here's the real leverage question you can ask yourself, or anybody can. What action is most in our control that best predicts the result we want? That's it. Not 10 actions, not a full plan, not every idea we could work on, just one thing that gives you the highest chance of actually moving forward. When teams answer that question clearly, they stop spinning, they stop drowning in priorities, they stop doing work that feels productive but doesn't really move anything. They start aiming their efforts at what actually drives results. That's leverage. Aim before you act. The third driver is follow through. So like I said, the noise and the daily needs, these are always going to win if you don't protect the space to support the work. Follow through is the simple, consistent habit that keeps execution from falling apart. You can take 10 minutes, 3 questions. What's moving? What's stuck? What support do you need? That's it. Those 10 minutes can protect the 30 hours you invested in clarity with the team, right? So follow through isn't about monitoring people. It's about staying close enough to the reality that is happening to support momentum before it fades. Follow through, practice consistently, is what makes execution reliable. Now, execution is where clarity becomes movement, where decisions start turning into results. But movement doesn't maintain itself. If you don't protect it, the day-to-day will pull you right back into old habits and reactivity. Execution gets you moving, but sustainment keeps you from slipping back. Sustainment is where the real discipline lives in consistency, support, and accountability that reinforces the behaviors that actually drive the results. Because results don't come from intensity, they come from the follow through. And that's where we're headed next. How to build a system of follow up that protects your progress and makes execution a natural part of how you lead. Now, if you want a simple structure to help you with your next initiative and get things moving quickly, feel free to grab my 72-hour follow-through plan. It's linked below. It's a very similar framework I use with my clients and teams to turn decisions into very visible progress. Because clarity is powerful, but consistent action is what builds trust. So if you enjoy this and want more leadership strategies, feel free to hit subscribe. I'll keep sharing them. That's it, okay? Now go get executing.